What happens when Hollywood's most beloved action hero meets late-night television's most passive-aggressive host? The answer might shock you. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the man who conquered bodybuilding, Hollywood, and politics, found himself in the most uncomfortable interview of his career when Jimmy Kimmel decided to turn what should have been a routine promotional appearance into a public ambush. Tonight, we're diving deep into the heated exchange that left audiences stunned, producers scrambling, and one of the biggest names in entertainment walking off set in disgust. This isn't just another celebrity interview gone wrong. This is a masterclass in how ego and manipulation can destroy careers in real time. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because what you're about to witness will change how you see late-night television forever. The green room at Jimmy Kimmel Live was buzzing with the usual pre-show energy. Arnold Schwarzenegger sat in his chair, reviewing talking points with his publicist while sipping his protein shake. At 76 years old, the Austrian oak still commanded attention wherever he went, his massive frame filling out his perfectly tailored suit. He had done thousands of interviews over the decades, from his bodybuilding days through his Hollywood reign and gubernatorial term. This was supposed to be easy, a simple chat about his latest Netflix documentary, and maybe some nostalgic stories about his action movie days. 5 minutes, Mr. Schwarzenegger, a production assistant called out, clipboard in hand. Arnold nodded, standing up to his full imposing height. His publicist, Sarah, looked up from her phone with a slight frown. Arnold, I'm seeing some chatter on social media about Kimmel planning something tonight. Nothing specific, but his writers have been dropping hints all week about a special guest surprise. Arnold waved dismissively. Sarah, I have been doing this longer than that man has been on television. Whatever games he wants to play, I can handle it. Besides, what is he going to do? Make jokes about my accent? My movies? I have heard it all before. But Sarah's concerns weren't unfounded. Behind the scenes, Jimmy Kimmel had been planning this interview for weeks, not as the friendly promotional chat Arnold expected, but as what he privately called to his inner circle, a reckoning. Kimmel had harbored resentments against Arnold for years, dating back to comments the former governor had made about Hollywood's political activism during his time in Sacramento. Arnold had once suggested that entertainers should stick to entertaining rather than lecturing audiences about politics, a comment that had particularly stung Kimmel, who prided himself on his political commentary. The show's head writer, Mike, approached Kimmel in his dressing room as the host applied his final touches of makeup. Jimmy, are you sure about this approach tonight? Arnold's people are expecting a standard promotional interview. If we blindside him, it could get messy. Kimmel's reflection stared back at him in the mirror, his expression cold and calculated. Mike, I have been kissing up to these Hollywood dinosaurs for 20 years. Arnold Schwarzenegger thinks he can come on my show, promote his little documentary, and we will all pretend like he is some kind of American success story. Well, tonight he gets to answer some real questions for once. But Jimmy, the network, the sponsors, they don't know about this change in direction. The network wants ratings, Mike. Trust me, this will deliver ratings. Kimmel stood up, adjusting his tie with the confidence of someone who had never truly been challenged on his own show. Arnold Schwarzenegger made a career out of playing tough guys. Tonight, we find out if he really is one. Meanwhile, Arnold was making his way to the stage, his mind focused on the talking points he wanted to hit. The documentary was important to him, a personal project about overcoming adversity that he hoped would inspire young people. He had stories prepared about his early days in America, arriving with nothing but determination and a dream. As he walked through the backstage corridors, crew members nodded respectfully. Arnold had always been known for treating everyone on set with dignity, from the biggest stars to the lowest-paid assistants. The familiar sound of the Jimmy Kimmel Live theme music filled the studio as Arnold waited in the wings. He could hear Jimmy delivering his monologue to the audience, the same rhythm and cadence he had perfected over decades of late-night television. But there was something different in Jimmy's voice tonight, an edge that experienced performers recognize immediately. Ladies and gentlemen, my next guest needs no introduction, but I am going to give him one anyway, Jimmy announced to the studio audience. He is a 7-time Mr. Olympia, a movie star who dominated the 80s and 90s, and a former governor of California. He has a new documentary coming out that I am sure he would love to talk about. Please welcome Arnold Schwarzenegger. The audience erupted in applause as Arnold walked onto the stage, his trademark confident smile beaming as he waved to the crowd. He approached Jimmy's desk with the easy grace of someone who had done this routine countless times. The two men shook hands, Jimmy's grip, perhaps a bit too firm, held a bit too long, but Arnold chalked it up to television showmanship. "Arnold, great to have you back on the show," Jimmy said as they both took their seats. The audience was still, buzzing with excitement, cameras capturing every angle as the interview began. "It is always good to be here, Jimmy. You have a fantastic audience tonight," Arnold replied, his Austrian accent as thick as ever, his demeanor warm and engaging. He had perfected the art of television appearances decades ago, knowing exactly how to work a crowd and make even hostile interviewers feel at ease. But Jimmy was not interested in being put at ease tonight. "So Arnold, let's talk about your new documentary," Jimmy began, but his tone carried an undertone that made Arnold's publicist shift uncomfortably in the green room where she was watching on a monitor. "It's about overcoming adversity, right? Which is interesting coming from someone who has had every advantage handed to them." Arnold's smile faltered slightly, but he maintained his composure. "Well, Jimmy, I would not say advantages were handed to me. I came to America with $7 in my pocket and a gym bag. Everything I achieved came from hard work and determination." $7, Jimmy repeated, leaning back in his chair with a smirk. "You know, Arnold, I have heard that story probably 100 times over the years. The poor Austrian boy who came to America with nothing. But let's be honest with the audience tonight, shall we? You had connections in the bodybuilding world before you even arrived. You had people ready to help you. That's not exactly starting from nothing, is it?" The studio audience began to sense the shift in tone. This wasn't the playful banter they expected from a Jimmy Kimmel interview. Arnold's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a sign that those who knew him well would recognize as his patience beginning to wear thin. "Jimmy, I think you are misunderstanding how it works. Yes, I knew people in bodybuilding, but knowing people and having them hand you success are two very different things. I still had to train 8 hours a day. I still had to learn English. I still had to audition for every role and prove myself in every competition." Right, Jimmy nodded mockingly. "But see, this is what bothers me about your whole narrative, Arnold. You present yourself as this self-made man, this American dream success story, but you conveniently leave out all the help you received along the way. The investors who backed your real estate deals, the Hollywood executives who took chances on you despite your thick accent, the Republican establishment that cleared the path for your gubernatorial run." Arnold's hands, massive even in his 70s, gripped the arms of his chair. His publicist was now frantically texting someone, likely trying to figure out what had gone wrong with what was supposed to be a friendly interview. "Jimmy, I am not sure what point you are trying to make here. Every successful person receives help along the way. The difference is what you do with that help. I worked harder than anyone around me. I studied. I sacrificed. I earned everything. I achieved." "Did you, though?" Jimmy's voice was getting sharper now, his mask of television friendliness slipping away. "Because from where I sit, it looks like you have spent 40 years selling people a fantasy. The muscle-bound immigrant who conquered America through sheer willpower. But the reality is, you were a savvy businessman who knew how to work the system, who knew how to use people, and who has been rewriting history ever since." The audience was now completely silent, sensing they were witnessing something unprecedented. Arnold's legendary self-control was being tested in ways it had never been tested before, at least not in such a public forum. I think you have some kind of problem with me personally, Jimmy, and I am not sure why you are choosing to air it on television instead of talking to me like a man," Arnold said, his voice still controlled, but with an unmistakable edge. "If you want to have a real conversation about my life and career, I am happy to do that. But if you want to sit here and attack me based on your own misconceptions, then maybe we should end this interview right now." Jimmy laughed, a sound devoid of any genuine humor. "Oh, now we are getting somewhere. See, this is the real Arnold Schwarzenegger coming out. The guy who bulldozes over anyone who dares to question his version of events. Tell me, Arnold, how many people did you step on during your climb to the top? How many dreams did you crush to build your own empire?" "That is enough," Arnold said, starting to stand up from his chair. But Jimmy was not done yet. "Sit down, Arnold. We are just getting started here. You came on my show to promote your documentary about overcoming adversity. So let's talk about real adversity. Let's talk about the working-class people in California, who suffered while you played governor for 8 years. Let's talk about the environmental promises you made that you never kept. Let's talk about the way you used your celebrity status to manipulate voters into thinking you actually cared about public service." Arnold remained standing, his full height towering over Jimmy even from several feet away. "You know what your problem is, Jimmy. You sit behind this desk every night making jokes about people who are actually out there doing things, building things, creating things. You have never created anything in your life except cynicism and negativity. You think tearing down successful people makes you look smart, but it just makes you look bitter." The studio was now in complete silence except for the hum of cameras and equipment. Jimmy's producers were having frantic conversations through their headsets, unsure whether to cut to commercial or let this train wreck continue. "Bitter?" Jimmy's voice was rising now, his composure completely gone. "I am bitter? You are the one who spent 8 years as governor accomplishing nothing, then ran back to Hollywood to make more mindless action movies. You are the one who has been coasting on your reputation for decades, while contributing nothing meaningful to society." "Contributing nothing?" Arnold's voice boomed through the studio, his Austrian accent thick with emotion. "I have created jobs for thousands of people. I have inspired millions to improve their physical fitness. I have served my adopted country in public office. What have you done, Jimmy, besides sit here and mock people who are actually trying to make a difference?" Jimmy stood up now too, clearly not wanting to be physically dominated by his guest. "I have used my platform to hold people accountable, to ask the tough questions that other interviewers are too scared to ask. Unlike you, I do not hide behind a fake persona and pretend to be something I am not." "Fake persona?" Arnold laughed, but it was a harsh sound. "You want to talk about fake personas? You have built your entire career on pretending to be the nice guy, the everyman who just happens to have his own television show. But tonight, your true colors are showing, Jimmy. You are a small, petty man who gets his kicks from trying to humiliate guests on national television." The tension in the studio was now palpable. Audience members were looking around nervously, unsure if they should be clapping, booing, or simply sitting in stunned silence. Jimmy's producers were making increasingly desperate gestures from the wings, but both men were now too invested in their confrontation to pay attention to anyone else. "Small and petty?" Jimmy's face was flushed red now. "At least I have never sold out my principles for political power. At least I have never pretended to be a man of the people while living in a mansion and flying around in private jets. You are everything that is wrong with American celebrity culture, Arnold. You are a fraud who has been getting away with it for 40 years. Arnold's eyes blazed with a fury that few people had ever witnessed. The man who had faced down cinematic villains, political opponents, and personal scandals was now confronting something he had never encountered before. A television host who seemed determined to destroy him on live television for no apparent reason other than pure malice. "You know what, Jimmy? "I have had enough of this nonsense," Arnold said, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had commanded movie sets and governed the world's fifth-largest economy. "You invited me here under false pretenses. You told my people this was going to be a friendly interview about my documentary. But instead you have turned it into some kind of personal attack based on your own twisted view of my life and career." Jimmy was not backing down. If anything, Arnold's display of anger seemed to energize him further. "False pretenses? Arnold, this is exactly what this interview was always going to be. The only false pretense here is your entire public image. You have spent decades fooling people into thinking you are some kind of inspirational figure, but you are just another celebrity who used his fame to accumulate power and wealth. And what exactly is wrong with accumulating wealth through hard work and success?" Arnold shot back. "I have employed thousands of people throughout my career. I have paid millions in taxes. I have donated countless hours to charity work and public service. What have you contributed to society besides sarcasm and negativity?" "I contribute honesty," Jimmy replied, his voice dripping with self-righteousness. "I contribute truth-telling in an industry full of people like you who traffic in fantasies and self-promotion. Every night, I come out here and I give audiences the real story, not the sanitized version that celebrities want people to hear." Arnold shook his head in disgust. "Honesty? Jimmy, there is nothing honest about what you are doing right now. This is not journalism. This is not truth-telling. This is a hit job, plain and simple. You are trying to destroy my reputation because it makes you feel important, because it feeds your ego to think you can take down someone who has actually accomplished something with their life." The audience was now completely captivated by this real-time destruction of a television interview. Some were pulling out their phones to record, despite the show's strict no-recording policy. This was the kind of unscripted television drama that would be talked about for years. "Take you down?" Jimmy laughed bitterly. "Arnold, you have been taking yourself down for years. The steroid use during your bodybuilding career that you have never fully acknowledged. The way you treated women on your movie sets. The complete failure of your political career to deliver on any of the grand promises you made. I am not destroying your reputation. I am simply pointing out what everyone already knows but is too polite to say." Arnold's face went white with rage. "You want to talk about treating women badly? Let's talk about the way you have made your career mocking and humiliating female celebrities on this very show. Let's talk about your history of inappropriate comments disguised as comedy. At least when I made mistakes, I owned up to them and tried to make amends. You just hide behind the excuse that it is all supposed to be funny. Do not try to turn this around on me," Jimmy snapped. "I am not the one with a documented history of inappropriate behavior. I am not the one who fathered a child with my housekeeper while married to a Kennedy. I am not the one who has been lying to the public for decades about who I really am." The mention of Arnold's personal scandals crossed a line that even Arnold's legendary patience could not tolerate. His voice dropped to a dangerous whisper that somehow carried more menace than any shout could have. "Jimmy, you just made the biggest mistake of your career. You think you can sit behind this desk and attack my family, my personal life, my character, and I am just going to sit here and take it because this is your show? You are wrong. Dead wrong." Jimmy seemed to realize he might have pushed too far, but his pride would not let him back down now. "It is my show, Arnold, and on my show, we tell the truth. If you cannot handle the truth, then maybe you should not have come here tonight." "The truth?" Arnold's voice was rising again, his Austrian accent making every word sound like a weapon. "You want the truth, Jimmy? The truth is that you are a failed comedian who got lucky enough to inherit a television show, and now you think that makes you some kind of moral authority. The truth is that you have never created anything, never built anything, never risked anything. You are a parasite who feeds off the accomplishments of others." "Get out," Jimmy said suddenly, his voice shaking with rage. "Get out of my studio, right now." Arnold smiled for the first time since the interview began, but it was not a pleasant smile. "Oh, now you want me to leave? After you spent the last 15 minutes trying to humiliate me on national television? After you attacked my family and my character? No, Jimmy. I am not leaving because you told me to. I am leaving because I have had enough of your pathetic little power trip." Arnold began walking toward the edge of the stage, but he was not finished talking. "You know what the real tragedy is here, Jimmy? You had one of the most successful careers in entertainment history. Sitting right in front of you, someone who could have shared decades of real stories and genuine insights with your audience. Instead, you chose to turn this into some kind of personal vendetta, because you are too small and too bitter to appreciate success when you see it." Jimmy stood up behind his desk, shouting now, "You do not get to lecture me about success, Arnold. You are a relic from a different era, who has been coasting on past accomplishments for years. This interview is exactly what you deserved." Arnold paused at the edge of the stage and turned back to face Jimmy one last time. "No, Jimmy, this interview is exactly what you deserved. You wanted to show everyone who the real Arnold Schwarzenegger is? Well, congratulations. You have shown everyone who the real Jimmy Kimmel is instead. A small, petty, vindictive man who gets his kicks from trying to destroy people who are better than him." The studio was in complete chaos now. Producers were frantically signaling to cut to commercial, but the cameras were still rolling. Audience members were on their feet, some applauding Arnold, others sitting in stunned silence. Jimmy was left standing behind his desk, his face red with anger and embarrassment, as one of the biggest stars in Hollywood history walked off his set in disgust. As Arnold disappeared through the backstage curtain, Jimmy tried to regain his composure, but the damage was done. He had gotten exactly what he wanted, a confrontation with Arnold Schwarzenegger, but it had backfired spectacularly. Instead of exposing Arnold as a fraud, he had exposed himself as a bully who was willing to destroy his own show for the sake of his personal grudges. The cameras finally cut to commercial, but not before capturing Jimmy's face as the reality of what had just happened began to sink in. He had just ended his career in the most public way possible, and everyone in that studio knew it. What did you think of Jimmy Kimmel's behavior during this explosive interview? Was Arnold right to walk off the set, or should he have stayed and continued to defend himself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories that Hollywood does not want you to hear. The entertainment industry is full of secrets and power plays that never make it to the headlines, and we are here to bring you the truth that other channels are afraid to tell.